All right, let's go on the record. We are outside the presence of the jury. Mr. Cahill is present in court with counsel, also present counsel for the state. Mr. Cahill, it is my understanding that you intend to plead guilty to the 7 indictments against you. The evading arrest or detention with a motor vehicle charge is a 3rd-degree felony. Sir, if you are convicted of a 3rd-degree felony, you could be confined in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for a period of not less than 2 years, not more than 10 years. You could also be assessed a fine of up to $10,000. Sir, you are also charged by indictment with aggravated assault, by threat with a deadly weapon, a 2nd-degree felony. Sir, if you are convicted of a 2nd-degree felony, you could be sentenced to a term of confinement of not less than 2 years and not more than 20 years in the penitentiary. You could also be assessed a fine of up to $10,000. The remaining 5 indictments against you charge you separately with aggravated assault against a public servant, a 1st-degree felony. Mr. Cahill, if you are convicted of a 1st-degree felony, you could be confined in the penitentiary for a period of not less than 5 years, not more than 99 years, or life. You could also be assessed a fine of up to $10,000. Mr. Cahill, do you understand the range of punishment for each of these 7 indictments against you? It is also my understanding that there is no plea agreement in this case and that you will be pleading guilty and that the jury who was selected last Wednesday will assess your punishment. It is also my duty to warn you that if you plead guilty to these indictments and you're not a citizen of the United States, in all likelihood you'll be deported, denied reentry, and you'll never be eligible for naturalized citizenship, sir. Do you understand this warning? Based on my observation, Mr. Haynes, Mr. Cahill appears to be competent to proceed. Do you have an opinion as to whether your client is competent? All right, the court finds Mr. Cahill competent based on observation and the representation of counsel. We'll also find that Mr. Cahill Mr. Cahill's plea of guilty is free and voluntary. Mr. Cahill, you have the right to have the indictments against you read out loud. Would you like them read out loud, or do you waive the reading of the indictments? All right, sir, what is your plea to each of the 7 indictments? Are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily? Has anyone pressured you to plead guilty? Has anyone promised you a reward to get you to plead guilty? All right. I will again make the finding that Mr. Cahill's plea is free and voluntary and that he is competent. Both sides ready to proceed? Ready, Your Honor. All right, court officer, please bring in the jury. Any objection to those documents being admitted for record purposes? All right, they're admitted for record purposes. All right. Please be seated. Members of the jury, I'm going to ask you to stay standing for a moment. Please raise your right hand for me. Do each of you swear or affirm that you will render a true verdict in this case, the state of Texas versus Bryan Matthew Cahill, a true verdict according to the law and the evidence, so help you God? Thank you. Please be seated. Members of the jury, when you come into the courtroom, you may immediately take your seats. Everyone is standing out of respect for your role in this trial. Having taken that oath, you are now officials of this court, participating in the public administration of justice. If at any time you can't clearly hear this proceeding, please do not hesitate. Let us know by raising your hand. We will normally take a mid-morning break, a lunch break, and a mid-afternoon break. However, if there is any other time any of you needs to take a break, please let us know by raising your hand. I have to read some instructions to you out loud. A written copy of these instructions should also have been provided to you in the jury room. Some of these instructions are similar to the ones that I gave the jury panel last week. Some of them I have not previously given. Please observe all the instructions of the court until you are released from jury service. No communication about this case is permitted at any time. While you're in the courtroom and in the jury room, it is very important that you keep all electronic devices turned off and that you do not use them. You must not communicate to anyone about this case or use any electronic device to communicate with anyone about this case. That includes your family and friends. You cannot communicate with anyone about this case in person, by phone, by email, by text, or by posting information on social media. You can tell whoever you need to that you are on a jury and how long you expect to be on jury duty, but that is all you are allowed to communicate until you are released. Do not even discuss the case among yourselves until after you have heard all the evidence and the court's charge and after I have sent you to the jury room to deliberate. You are obligated to keep an open mind and not decide any issue until the case is formally submitted to you by the court. Do not perform any independent investigation. For example, don't try to get any information about this case, the participants, lawyers, witnesses, or any legal issues from outside this courtroom. Do not go to any places mentioned in the testimony, inspect any items mentioned in the case unless they are admitted as evidence in open court. Do not look up anything in a law book, a dictionary, public record, or on the internet to try to learn more about the case. Do not search for anything related to the case on the internet to try to learn more about the case or the participants, and do not let anyone else do any of those things for you. This rule is very important because the trial has to be based only on evidence that is admitted in open court. Your conclusions about the trial must be based only on what you see and hear in this courtroom. The law does not permit you to base your conclusions on information that was not vetted and presented in open court. In other words, we do not permit trials by secret evidence. We have public trials in this country. All of the information must be presented in open court because each side has a right to challenge the evidence and so that the evidence can be vetted. Information from other sources like the internet may not go through any vetting process and as a result may be inaccurate, unreliable, or otherwise inadmissible under our laws. If you investigate this case on your own, you could compromise the fairness to the parties and cause a mistrial. In the event that there are any, do not read any newspaper articles, watch any television, or listen to any radio reports that discuss this trial. Because of your background, training, or experience, you may have specialized knowledge about something related to this case. For example, you may have a background in business, science, medicine, or some other profession. You may even be an expert in your field, or you may have expert opinions. You may discover that you know something about this case or a similar case. Do not tell the other jurors about any of that. If you do, that would mean the jury would be considering evidence that was not vetted and admitted in open court. The statements made by attorneys are to help you understand this case and the evidence and the law, but do not consider their statements as evidence. Evidence includes the sworn testimony of witnesses either in person or through written transcripts or video recordings of testimony called depositions. Evidence can also be admitted in the form of physical objects or documents called exhibits. Whether evidence may be admitted for consideration by you is governed by rules. During the trial, the attorneys may make objections. If they do so, please understand they are just doing their job. If an objection is made, I have to rule on it. There may be times when I have to send you to the jury room to allow the attorneys to make legal arguments about whether evidence should be admitted for your consideration. Please do not consider any testimony or exhibits to which an objection is sustained or that I tell you to disregard. Some testimony or exhibits may be admitted for a limited purpose. If that happens, I will tell you to consider the evidence for a limited purpose, and you must do so under your oath. Testimony normally will not be repeated during the trial. Please listen carefully to the testimony. Counsel for the state, please present the indictments to the jury. Counsel. Number 380. To the charge in the indictment, what is the defendant's plea, guilty or not guilty? Plea of guilty is entered. To the charge as presented, what is the defendant's plea? Guilty. The plea of guilty is entered. To the charge as presented, what is the defendant's plea? Plea of guilty is entered. To the charge as presented, what is the defendant's plea? Guilty. Plea of guilty is entered. To the charge as presented, what is the defendant's plea? Guilty. Plea of guilty is entered. charge as presented, what is the defendant's plea?
Guilty.
Plea of guilty is entered.
380.
For the charge as presented, what is the defendant's plea? Plea of guilty is entered. The rule has been invoked. Are there any witnesses who are available to be sworn at this time? All right, please come forward. Morning, please come up to this table here. Please raise your right hand for me. Do each of you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Please tell me your full name. Gentlemen, you can put your hands down. The rule has been invoked. What that means is that you're not allowed to hear the testimony of the other witnesses. You have to remain outside until it is your turn to testify. In addition, do not discuss the case with anyone. However, you may speak to the attorneys if you want to. That is your choice. Does everybody understand the rule? Please observe the rule. If you do not, you could be held in contempt of court. Please have a seat outside until it's your turn to testify. Thank you. Would you like to make an opening statement, Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, please, Your Honor. Again, may it please the court. Defense counsel. Ladies and gentlemen, may it please you. The evidence in this case is going to be very clear. And as you hear it and see it, it's going to lead you to one conclusion, and that is Bryan Matthew Cahill is a threat wherever he is. Let me say that again. He is a threat wherever he is. The evidence in this case is going to start and take you back into the 90s. Because what you're going to find out is Bryan Matthew Cahill was a threat to his own family. See, in the 90s, Bryan Matthew Cahill was abusing drugs. You're going to hear about drug abuse that included everything from alcohol and marijuana all the way up to LSD and PCP. He was dealing with mental health issues. You're going to hear that his family did their best, I am sure, by sending him away, by having people try to help him while he was still abusing these drugs. They did their best. But you're going to hear from Plano PD. You're going to hear from a police officer who is retired, who spent 30 years with Plano PD, and he's going to come in here and tell you, when we told him the address 2741 South Cypress all those many years ago, he remembered that address because of how many times they were called out there for incidents where Bryan Matthew Cahill was assaulting his mother, was threatening to kill or assault his brother and father. Bryan Matthew Cahill is a threat wherever he is. And you're going to see evidence that in the early 2000s, he was going to a doctor. They were working through medication, trying to get him right. We will have decades of people trying to get Bryan Matthew Cahill right. And I wish that it stopped there, but it didn't, because on March 29th of 2019, we got to deal with the threat that Bryan Matthew Cahill was. And his family, I'm sure, again, tried to do what's right, but we don't blame families in these courtrooms. But when the police would interact back in the 90s with Bryan Matthew Cahill, of course, his mom, I don't want him arrested. I don't want to pursue charges. I don't want to have him in that system. Well, December 14th of 2018, his mother makes a call to the Frisco Police Department. 2018. And what she tells the Frisco Police Department, the officer who is on the phone duty, desk duty at that time, is, my son is off his medication, he has access to weapons, and he is threatening to kill me. The officer does exactly what he was supposed to do. He follows the standard protocol, and he says, ma'am, you need to go to the Collin County Courthouse. You need to go to their mental health court. You need to give them information that your son is either threatening to harm himself or others. They can provide the vehicle for a warrant to go out, and then we can get him and take him and have him evaluated. We can't go arrest people just because someone calls us. And she is given that information. January 11th, almost a month later, she calls Frisco again. My son is off his medication. He has access to weapons. He's threatening to kill his neighbors and me. She also adds, he's never threatened to kill anybody before. Frisco takes this very seriously this time. They actually send patrol officers to La Valencia Apartments. They see that his green Firebird is in the parking lot to confirm that he's there. They send officers to his door to knock on that door. Mr. Cahill, are you there? And one of the officers actually stays on the phone with Christine Cahill, the defendant's mother. And during that conversation, she tells him, he just told me that the police officers are there. He says he's going to end this. Corporal in the Frisco Police Department has to make a pretty quick call right there. I've got 3 officers up at his door. I've got myself and another officer on the phone with his mom, and I've got someone who says he's going to end this. You will find that this officer made the absolute right call to save lives that night. First off, he had no legal authority to break down somebody's door just based on someone calling. But second, you're going to understand that what was facing in the inside of that apartment, that corporal saved lives that night. And that corporal says, we are not going to engage. We are not going to try to go through a door. And nothing they do, they follow their standard operating procedures, and they tell Christine Cahill, ma'am, if he is saying these things, you need to go to the Collin County Courthouse. You need to go to the mental health court. You need to tell them he is a danger to himself or others. We can get a warrant. We can go get him. Help us help you. They also tell her about LifePath, our mental health services here in Collin County. She says, I understand. I'm going to do it on Monday. Frisco took that so seriously they did what's called a CIT referral. And what that means is they had an officer follow up with Christine Cahill. It happened on January 22nd. It actually was the same corporal who did not send men and women in through that door. And he calls Christine Cahill and he says, look, I need to follow up with you. What's been going on with Bryan? And he's told at that time, 1, he's fine. He's back on his medications. 2, I don't know if he ever had access to the weapons. Frisco closes that file out based on that conversation. March 29th of 2019, Trooper Travaris Webb is operating on the Dallas North Toll Road. Some of you may be familiar with the area. It's the North Toll Road right above George Bush where Willow Bend Mall is. Some of you know where that is in Plano. It's where George Bush and the toll road kind of come together. The trooper is driving south on the toll road and takes one of those little turnarounds. You know, you exit onto the frontage road, you go underneath the highway and get back up. So now he's going northbound. He sees a green Firebird going 125 miles an hour on the toll road. In and out of cars. You can imagine that didn't sit real well with that trooper. And that trooper flips on lights and sirens, gets behind that Firebird. And that Firebird, recognizing the authority of a trooper, turn signal, exits that highway, and ends up right at Spring Creek. It's north of that area. It's north of where Willow Bend Mall is. It's right by the Legacy East, Parks of Legacy shopping area. And when he exits, there's a little frontage road, and there's a little kind of unfinished road in a field. And Bryan Matthew Cahill pulls that Firebird over. Trooper Travaris Webb walks up to his vehicle, and you're going to see all this stuff. Everything's on video in this offense. He walks right up to the car, and he says, "Why are you driving like that?" And you're going to hear this defendant calmly and collectively tell him, "I'm a little bit crazy." As the trooper walked up to that car, he noticed what looked to him like a black rifle bag in the back of that car. So he has the defendant step out of that car, move to the rear of his vehicle. You'll see him get his driver's license. I mean, this has never been a whodunit. He gets his driver's license from him, he slams the door, and he tells him, "You stay here." And he goes back to his patrol unit to start putting the information into the computer. And he tells him, "You're going to jail. You almost killed some people out there. You're going to jail." And the defendant starts to try to talk himself out of a ticket. As that trooper is sitting in his vehicle, you're going to see this defendant standing behind his, look left, look right, look left, and he starts to go toward the door. The trooper's out of his unit. He runs towards him, and you'll see Travaris Webb's a little bit shorter than I am. The defendant is 6 foot, and he's a big dude. Travaris Webb uses command presence to shout commands at him. "You stay right there. You stay behind your vehicle. Do you understand me?" Cahill acknowledges that he understands the trooper's commands. And that trooper goes back to his unit to try to do exactly what he's supposed to do in that situation. He gets on his computer, he's starting to put stuff in, and you will see the defendant look left, look right, and run back to that door. He makes it quicker this time. And Trooper Webb pulls his sidearm and begins to approach that door, shouting commands. "Get out of the car. Get out of the car. You better stop. You better stop." He exercises restraint as Bryan Cahill floors that Firebird and actually takes it out into a field. Webb retreats to his unit, calls out that he's about to be in a chase, and you're going to watch Bryan Cahill takes a Firebird through a field back behind the trooper's car and gets onto the service road. He's going to jump an embankment, go around, car stopped at a stoplight, and get back on the toll road. He will go in and out of cars at high speeds while a trooper pursues him all the way up to Lebanon. Now we are in Frisco. Some of you may recognize that area. That's where the Star is now. It's just north of 121. I think it's probably the first exit north of 121 where that big IKEA is. And they take the Lebanon exit. Now by this time, Cahill has lost his left rear tire. It has blown out because of the way he's driving, and he's driving on a rim. They exit Lebanon. He runs one red light, takes a left, runs another red light through traffic, and exits to La Valencia Apartments. For Frisco had been 2 months earlier. He hits whatever you hit to open the gate, and you're going to actually watch. It's pretty smart. He pulls in, and the gate's not going to open quick enough, and he doesn't want to get jammed up, so he actually takes that Firebird and circles the front a second time to get in the gate. And now he's going, and that trooper's following him, and that trooper gets behind. And ladies and gentlemen, when you watch this video, you're going to see that but for seconds, we would have lost that trooper. Because Bryan Cahill didn't stay in his vehicle when he stops this time. This time, Bryan Cahill opens the door to that Firebird and comes out with a Maverick 12-gauge shotgun loaded with slugs. For those of you who don't understand what slugs are, instead of shot being shot out of that shotgun, pieces of lead come out of that shotgun now. And he comes up firing. And you're going to actually see from body cam and dash cam, one of those rounds almost immediately hits right where that trooper is sitting, blows up a radar on the dash of that trooper's vehicle. He's firing now at a trooper with an apartment complex behind the trooper. And you'll see some of those rounds actually go into people's apartments. That trooper is now in a gun battle with Bryan Cahill. And I really wish I could tell you that the evidence was going to show that that was the only weapon he had. But you will see him transition from that shotgun to a Glock 23, a 40 cal medium-sized Glock. And he will begin to put rounds towards that trooper. That trooper is returning fire this entire time. And look, folks, you're going to watch a gun battle through a body cam, a real-life gun battle. That trooper's fighting for his life against someone that he, at this point, does not realize is much more out-armed and much more ammoed up than he is. That gun battle continues. At some point during that gun battle, Travaris Webb is shot in his ankle. What you're going to find out is that actually blew apart the bones in his leg. He is trying to move. He is trying to work tactically to have cover, to get an angle. But what he doesn't know is he's running through bullets. Bryan Cahill had plenty left. And that's when a miracle happens. Because a citizen who just happens to be a combat experienced veteran decides to open his window, sees a trooper in trouble, and fires a couple rounds at Bryan Cahill from an apartment window. At that point, Bryan Cahill realizes, I'm about to be triangulated. He's got his trooper, he's shooting at his trooper, but now he's got another threat, and you're going to actually watch Bryan Cahill turn from that trooper and engage a citizen in a window. Bryan Cahill drops the Glock and transitions to his second pistol that he had on him. But what that did, though, was that made Bryan Cahill realize, I'm in a bad spot. He realized, tactically, I'm at a disadvantage. He doesn't go back to his car, because in his car, what we learned later was he had a bag in there, 6 extra magazines. 4 of them had 12 or 13 rounds. 2 of them were extended clips with 31 rounds apiece. We've got a shot trooper. We've got a citizen now being shot at. Bryan Cahill realized, I'm being triangulated, and he pulls back and starts to run towards his apartment, and the trooper gets him. The trooper gets a shot off, catches him in the leg, goes into his wrist, and he starts running up to his apartment. Blood trail up to his apartment. Bryan Cahill is a threat wherever he is. And I would love to tell you that's where it ended, right? But it didn't. Because now I've got a wounded trooper. Frisco PD is now responding and putting themselves in harm's way. And what you're going to find is now we've got what's called a barricaded person. And wait till you find out just how barricaded he was. We've got to get Trooper Webb to help. So Frisco PD, brave men and women from Frisco PD, they get him, they load him up into a squad car while they stand guard. Because now we've got somebody in an elevated position and we don't know what they have. It becomes a SWAT call out. It becomes a 15-hour standoff. As the SWAT members, and there's a lot more to it, but as the SWAT members get there, they try to break out a window so they can see what's going on in that apartment. They are answered by shots. They are answered by fire. In response to that, a trooper, Michael Herring, behind the original troop's vehicle, fires a .223 round into the apartment, and it stops the shooting for a little bit. That will be the only round fired by law enforcement through the standoff. Bryan Cahill fires 15, 16 rounds on a 4th weapon and a 3rd that he originally took up there. During that standoff, drones were employed to try to make sure that men and women of law enforcement were kept safe dealing with this situation. And what they found was the front door of Bryan Cahill's apartment had one of those barn door 2x6s across the front of it. If they had sent men and women in that door, they would have been in a fatal funnel, meaning they would have been caught trying to breach a door with someone who, as you will see, was firing out that door. Those drones allowed men and women to be safe. They allowed Frisco SWAT, Plano SWAT, FBI SWAT, McKinney SWAT, because again, 15-hour standoff, to devise a proper way to breach that front door. And they blew that front door. And they sent a robot in to find a second barricaded door. Remember I told you how that corporal that night saved men and women's lives by not going through that front door? Now we know why. They threw a throw phone in there, cell phone. He would not respond. They texted him. They called him. You got to talk to us. No response except for gunfire. He fired out a window towards an APC, an armored personnel carrier, which was west of the location where other officers were during that time, put their lives at risk. I don't know if any of you have thought about this or not, but we're talking about an apartment complex. We had men and women of SWAT operations trying to clear out people who were just living their lives while gunshots are going off towards their apartments. You want to find out across the street is a Montessori school where children were on lockdown because we didn't know we had an active shooter at the time, and teachers were having to make decisions about who gets closest to the door. Bryan Cahill is a threat wherever he is. The standoff ended when they blew the second door, barricaded door. He crawled himself out to SWAT operators. We find 2 in the waistband holsters in his pants. Tells you when that trooper pulled him over, he had 2 guns on him. And I would love to tell you it stops there. I told you he is a threat wherever he is. And during this punishment phase, you are also going to hear what Bryan Cahill is like in our jail. In our jail, he has been receiving the same drugs that men and women in the healthcare industry have tried to find and work with him to get him right. He has been receiving care. He has been put on antidepressants, and he has been put on antipsychotics. And in that jail, you are going to listen to him cuss out his mom, manipulate his mom. These aren't my words, but you're going to have to listen to him. He's going to scream at her, call her things that no one should ever call another human being. He is going to threaten guards. You're going to get to hear that. You're also going to get to hear him while on medication saying a lot of really ugly racist stuff, and I apologize for that. Again, not my words, his. He uses the N-word a lot. Our trooper, Travaris Webb, is an African-American. You will see that even while on med, he is paranoid about those around him, including the jailers. He makes threats with regards to anyone in his life. You are going to hear jail calls where he uses my name. You're going to hear jail calls where he uses the defense counsel's name and makes veiled threats against his own defense counsel. Bryan Cahill is a threat no matter where he is. You may hear a lot of why in this trial, but ladies and gentlemen, I think the evidence is going to point you toward the why doesn't matter as much dealing with how we keep someone from being a threat to our community and our people safe. That's what your job is going to be as you listen.
Mr. Haynes, would the defense like to make an opening statement at this time?
Please the court.
Sir.
Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Singletary, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You mentioned during jury selection that this is going to be an unusual criminal trial in this sense. The defendant has pleaded guilty, and we're going to both sides are going to put on some testimony and evidence for you about this case. And then the judge is going to give you some written instructions which will also be read to you to tell you how to go back and to deliberate and reach a verdict in this case. It's very rare. When June 10th comes, I'll have been licensed exactly 44 years, and I can fingers of one hand how many times I've seen a plea of guilty made to a jury. Usually it's a big matter of drama, whether the jury is going to return a verdict of guilty or not guilty. There's going to be no drama about that here. The judge is going to tell you, based on Mr. Cahill's pleas, that you heard made this morning, that you are instructed to find him guilty. Then it's going to be your job, from all the evidence that you hear in this case, to render a reasoned moral response to the actions that he chose to take at the end of March of 2019. Now, the evidence that you are going to hear about what happened that day is going to be pretty dramatic. This is a really bad case. Maybe not the very worst one that there's ever been, because no one's dead, but it's really, really bad what he did. Sure that having had 26 months to reflect on it, if you could go back to March 2019, he would make other choices. It's too late for that now. Nothing can change what happened on the day that he got arrested. The only thing he can do to try to begin to seek some redemption in this case and to come to terms with the things that happened and the things that he did is to do what he's done, to enter a plea of guilty. I don't want to take anything away from the evidence that my friend Mr. Mitchell is going to present. The events of that day in March are pretty much as he described. You're going to hear, I think, that the tollway is a place where a lot of crazy driving gets done, and certainly that day, Mr. Cahill was doing some pretty crazy driving. Highway Patrol are vigilant for that on that road as they need to be. For sure, he was driving badly. For sure, he stopped. For sure, he ran from that officer when he should have stayed. If he had stayed, it would have been nothing worse than an arrest for a misdemeanor reckless driving. Instead, by his actions, bad situation and made it worse. He fled up the tollway, he got to his apartment, and he came out shooting, gunfire was exchanged. If this had happened 30 years ago, we probably would not be here in court. Because it's probable that in police methods that took place in the past, no one would have been. He was taken prisoner, and he has resided in our jail ever since that day in March. Once again, your job is going to be to come up with a reasoned moral response to those events. We expect to put on some testimony to show you what's been going on in Mr. Cahill's life since he was born. He's 44 now. His mother noticed that he was a young man with, a young boy, an infant really, with problems from the very beginning. Problems have continued his whole life long. Many attempts to try to intervene and try to make some progress with those problems. Some of them have been more successful than others, some of them less. When you hear this evidence, and as it comes in, I ask you to remember this. There is more to Bryan Matthew Cahill than March 29, 2019. Come up with a reasoned moral response based on everything you hear. I ask your attention, I ask your indulgence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. State, please call your first witness.
The state calls Trooper West.
Sir, please come around and have a seat over here at the witness stand. Whenever you're ready.
Morning, sir.
If you would introduce yourself to
Trooper Travaris Webb. And Trooper, I'm reminding myself as I'm talking to you, we have to talk into the microphone. So as we go, it's going to be tough, but just please try to remind yourself to speak into it, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. If you would, where are you originally from?
I am from Midland, Texas.
Grew up in Midland. Did you graduate high school there?
Yes, sir.
What about college? Did you go to college?
Yes, Angelo State.
Okay. Well, let's jump to this. Why in the world did you become a DPS trooper?
Well, I have family members in it. A lot of people from church were in it, and it's just something that I've always wanted to do.
How long have you been a trooper with DPS?
A little bit over 14 years.
Where all have you been assigned in that role?
I've been assigned, of course, in West Texas, Midland, Odessa,
and then I moved here, worked in Rockwall, and now I'm currently on the tollway.
Okay. Could you run us through and talk to the jury a little bit about what does it take to become a DPS trooper?
Of course, you have to have the college hours. Secondly, you have to go through a written exam, psychological exam, polygraph exam, and a physical exam.
Did you have to attend a DPS academy?
Yes, sir, I did.
And that's probably what most of us think it is, right? Is where you're trained on how to be a police officer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you would, as best as you can, describe to us what work as a DPS trooper is. Like what's the everyday? What does it mean to be a DPS trooper?
Well, there's no such thing as every day being the same. I mean, it's different every day. A lot of our stuff, especially in my field, I'm in highway patrol, so we do a lot of crash reconstruction, speed reductions, DWI investigations, and we assist other agencies.
Is the role different in the plains of West Texas than the toll road, or is it the same role, just different actors?
Same role, different actors.
Okay. For those of us who don't maybe know or have a lot of experience, is the role of a DPS trooper different than the role of a city police officer?
Yes, sir, it is. Our tasks are a little bit different. For example, we're deployed to the border quite often to do that enforcement down there. We respond to your national and your local disasters. We do all types of things. We work with other agencies, of course, DEA, Marshal Service, all of them, FBI, you name it.
Because of the nature of our highways and the ways that they're used, you get pulled in on a lot of different types of investigations.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Also, in terms of backup, oftentimes when I see someone pulled over in my city, I see, sometimes 2 police officers, if not 3 or 4 squads behind someone. Do you have the same amount of manpower in your area of operation as far as backup?
No, sir, and that's even across the state. We're normally solo by ourselves. Sometimes backup can be 30 minutes away, an hour away. I mean, sometimes you don't have backup.
And so as a DPS trooper, you're actually kind of taught you are a one-man unit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that also go with regards to dispatch? Do you have your own dispatch within the DPS? If I use the wrong words, please correct me. I don't mean to, but like within DPS, you have your own dispatch that isn't the same as Plano PD or Frisco PD or wherever it is you may be.
Correct. We do have DPS dispatch.
Okay. So when you call out or you mark out or you're letting dispatch know something, that is not necessarily going straight to all the agencies that you're operating within.
Correct.
Okay. Can you talk to us a little bit about your vehicle? On March 29th of 2019, what kind of vehicle did you have?
I was in a black and white Tahoe. I mean, the best way that I can explain it is kind of like a spaceship. I mean, you have everything in it from your computers to your lighting systems, to your audio and your camera systems. I mean, you have everything on there. I mean, it's an office on wheels.
An office on wheels. I mean, typically, how long is your shift?
10 hours. It goes longer than that. I mean, if it's going to happen, it happens at the end of your shift.
And exactly. So, like, if you have an intoxicated driver, it's always going to be towards the end, right?
Yes, sir.
And in all of law enforcement, my experience, let me see if it's the same as yours, what's the most paperwork-intense offense in law enforcement?
It would be the DWI.
So during that entire 10 hours, you're in that squad?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What kind of communication system do you have? How do you talk to other law enforcement or your dispatch?
We have a handheld radio, which doesn't work. We have an in-car radio that sometimes works, and we have a Nextel, which is just a big battery, is what it reminds me of. It's not very good either.
With regards to your radar system, and I mean, as far as like clocking speed and stuff like that, how does that work?
I mean, it's
And I don't mean the science.
oh, okay. Well, it's simple. I mean, it's just a mounted radar that can clock moving stationary vehicles front and back, and sometimes multiple lanes.
And then what about your weapon systems? Do you have a sidearm you carry?
Yes, sir, I do.
What kind of sidearm do you carry, if you don't mind me asking?
It's a SIG. It's a 9mm SIG.
And what is the magazine capacity in the magazines you carry?
Ours is about 13, just because we have a extra adapter to go on the back of it.
And on your typical uniform workup, how many magazines do you carry while you're out on patrol?
3.
Okay. Do you have a long gun?
Yes, sir, I do.
If you would tell the jury, what is a long gun?
It's going to be a rifle. It's going to be an AR-style type rifle that we issued.
And then how does that work? Is that just sitting in the car?
No, by policy, we have to secure it in a locking system, just to make sure that no one else can have access to that weapon.
And so it remains kind of behind you to your right in a lock system?
Yes, sir. Literally, it's probably right here if I'm sitting inside of my Tahoe, so I could actually get it out of the rack that way.
And what's the release mechanism on that?
It's an electronic release. We have certain buttons inside of our vehicle that will release that weapon to us.
All right, so I want to take you to March 29th of 2019. Could you tell us, what was your area of operation at that time?
I was on the Dallas North Tollway here in Collin County, just north of, I'll say, George Bush.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
So I don't have to keep walking back and forth. I'm gonna show you a bunch of exhibits, and then we can start talking about them, if that's okay with you.
Yes, sir.
Have you had a chance to view State's Exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are do you think those would help the jury as far as seeing kind of the area we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then let me show you what's been marked as States 7, 8, and 9. Have you had a chance to watch those and review those?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. And are those accurate recordings of what happened to you on March 29th, 2019?
Yes, sir, it is.
And then, in fact, in State's Exhibit number 9, did you work with me as far as watching that video and trying to show dialogue between you and the defendant in this case?
Yes, sir, I did.
And do you think that would help the jury in being able to understand what happened that day?
Yes, sir, I do.
State's Exhibits 10 through 15, are those accurate pictures taken from your body cam and your in-car video?
Yes, sir, it is.
And then State's Exhibit number 394, do you recognize that as being property you took off the defendant that day?
Yes, sir, it is.
394. At this time, Your Honor, we would offer States 1 through 15 and 394 tendering defense.
Any objection to 1 through 15 or 394?
We don't have any objection to any of those exhibits.
States 1 through 15 inclusive are admitted. States 394 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'd ask permission to use the audiovisual moving forward to publish those exhibits.
Permission granted.
All right, Trooper Webb, we are looking at what's been admitted as State's Exhibit number 1. Can you kind of describe to the jury what area we are talking about there?
We're talking about the Dallas North Tollway near Maggiano's, everything that's going east and west. It's going to be President George Bush Turnpike.
And as we get a little bit, as we zoom in on you said Maggiano's, we see the shops at Willow Bend. Is that the North Toll Road right there?
Yes, sir, it is.
Could you describe March 29th, 2019? Was there light traffic or was there consistent traffic?
There was a consistent traffic. I mean, the Dallas Tollway is normally pretty busy.
Okay. And as far as you remember, that was a Friday early afternoon?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you would, describe to the jury what you saw as you took the roundabout there at North Toll Road and West Park and got back onto that toll road going north. What did you see?
I observed a green passenger two-door vehicle traveling at a high rate of speed. I observed them driving on the left shoulder and just weaving in and out of traffic in an unsafe manner.
When you say weaving out of, let me back up. When you say high rate of speed, do you have an estimate as how fast he was going?
The final radar reading that I got was 125 miles an hour.
Is that a safe speed on the Dallas North Toll Road?
No, sir.
You've been a trooper for 14 years. Have you had to work high-speed fatalities?
All the time.
When you see someone going 125 on the toll road, does that get your, I don't know the right term, but I mean, does that get your attention?
Absolutely.
Okay. That day, did that get your attention?
Yes, sir. It definitely stood out.
Okay. What did you do in response to seeing that?
I activated my patrol lights and pulled the gentleman over.
Okay. Looking at State's Exhibit number 2, do we see the area of the toll road where you ended up pulling that person over?
Are you asking where we finally came to rest?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we zoom in there, the Spring Creek to the top, do you actually kind of see the area that you ended up coming to arrest?
Yes, sir, I do. I believe that little road is considered Bishop.
Okay.
It's not open to the public, but it does have a name of Bishop.
And when you say that little road, I'm going to try to see if I can help. Are we talking about that area right up there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Talk us through that. What do? You decide that you're going to pull over a car. What are you doing at that point? You know, you're watching the car, but what's going through your head, and what kind of decisions are you starting to think about at that point?
Well, first, I'm concerned about the public safety of others. I mean, that's number one. Deciding when to turn on my lights, deciding where to pull them over, what's a safe place to stop, away from the public. And so I'm looking at observing the vehicle, I'm observing the driver, I'm observing his driving patterns, I'm seeing what he's doing inside the vehicle. Is he moving around? Is he reaching? Is he looking at me? Does he see me? You know, it's some people may not see you. It happens to us all the time. Is he going to run? I mean, these are different things that we're thinking about. How many people are inside the vehicle?
As far as March 29th of 2019, your initial stop of that vehicle, did that go smoothly?
Yeah, he finally pulled over took the exit to pull over, yes, sir.
And that road that you described to us, was that a good, safe place to pull over?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so up until you pull that car over, as far as the actual, regardless of the driving earlier, he followed your commands. He recognized you being a trooper and pulled over.
Yes, sir, he did.
Okay. Let me ask you this: do you make decisions with regards to whether what kind of consequence? You've got everything from a warning to jailing. Are you making decisions about what kind of consequence you're looking at prior to pulling over, or is that not until you interact with the person?
It's prior to pulling them over.
Okay.
To make the decision.
And what was going through your mind that day as far as what you were going to do on that in response to that driving?
Based on his driving behavior, considering the fact that there was no other emergency, I did make a decision.
And what was that decision?
To take him to jail.
Okay. And what would you have taken him to jail for?
Reckless driving.
Reckless driving, is that, you know, without going into legal words, but is that, I mean, that's basically putting people at risk out there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a willful disregard to the safety of others and property.
So what information, have you sent his license plate information to dispatch by the time you pull him over?
Yes, sir. That's just so we can mark our location, so now they can see that I'm on a traffic stop. It's a safety issue, but yes, sir.
And what information do you have on whoever's in that vehicle by the time you exit your, and I mean in any case, what information do you have by the time you exit your patrol vehicle?
Just the driver's registration. I mean, that's it. We don't know who the driver is. We don't know any of that. We just know, hey, this is a green passenger vehicle belonging to X, Y, and Z, and whether it's registered or not, and whether or not they have insurance. That's all we see.
Okay. Any initial observations as you walked up to this car?
In terms of what?
What are you looking for? What did you see in this case? Anything stand out?
Well, like I said, I'm just looking at the driver's behavior as I approach. I mean, is he looking at me? Does he see me? Is he fidgety? Is he moving around inside the vehicle? How many occupants are there? Are there people in the back seat? And then, of course, once I make my initial contact and introduce myself to him, I'm observing what's going on inside of the vehicle. What's there? Are there guns there? Are there bombs there? I mean, anything. What can hurt me? What's the danger? Is there alcohol? We're looking at all different things in that small amount of time.
Did you do that in this case?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you observe anything of note as you approached that vehicle on the inside of the vehicle?
Yes, sir, I did. I observed it looked like a black rifle bag.
Okay.
Is what I remember seeing.
All right. Did you observe any other individuals in that car other than the defendant?
No, sir, I did not.
And let me stop for a second. The person you pulled over, do you see that person in court here today?
Yes, sir, I do.
If I'm sitting in chair number 1, my co-counsel's in chair number 2, 3, 4, 5, which chair is that person sitting in?
Number 5.
Okay. I would ask the record to reflect this witness has identified the defendant.
Any objection, Mr. Haynes?
No, sir.
The record will so reflect.
So let me ask you this, 'cause since you brought up seeing the rifle bag. We live in Texas. Drivers having weapons in their vehicles, does that automatically scare you or make you uneasy?
No, sir, it doesn't.
Okay. Normally, when you pull people over who have weapons in the car, do they generally tell you, I have a weapon in the car?
Yes, sir.
Did this defendant tell you he had a weapon in the car?
No, sir, he did not.
Okay. What'd you do next once you had approached that vehicle?
I asked him to step out.
Okay. Did you let him, I mean, being fired up, did you say anything? Do you remember, did you say anything to him as far as his driving or anything like that?
I believe I asked him, like, what is he thinking? Like, what are you doing? You know, what's going on in terms of his driving, because it was not normal.
Now, let me ask you this. You had him step out of the vehicle. Is that just standard, or was some of what you saw in the car, did that lead to the stepping out of the vehicle, or what led to that?
That's an officer safety issue. When we ask him to step out, there's a reason. There's something going on inside of us that says, hey, maybe we need to get this gentleman out or this individual out, just for my safety. Maybe there are weapons, anything. But after seeing the bag in the back, it's like, let me get him out of his element. Let's put him where he's safe, where I'm safe, and I can observe him. And I can clearly speak to him. He can clearly hear me. And that's why we pull him to the back like that.
Were you able to get his driver's license and insurance?
Yes, sir, I was.
And were you able to identify him as Bryan Matthew Cahill?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. When the person gets out of the car, are you sizing them up? Are you looking to see whether they're big or small or any of that kind of stuff?
No, sir. I mean, that doesn't necessarily matter to me. It's just more of I'm asking him to comply, to voluntarily comply with what I'm asking him to do.
You've been doing this too long. I pull somebody bigger than me out. That's probably going to make a difference to me. So you have him stand at the back of the car. What do you do next?
I get inside my patrol vehicle to start running information. And at that point, maybe even call for backup.
Do you remember in this one, and it doesn't matter if not, we've got the videos, but do you remember whether or not he tried to talk to you about getting a ticket or not getting a ticket or going to jail or not going to jail when you moved him back?
Yes, sir. He did, kind of ask me to give him a break, and I believe he said, I can't do this or something like that. Eventually, he said, I can't do this. And I explained to him, no, sir, you're going to jail.
What happened next once you got back into your patrol vehicle and started putting his information in?
He tried to re-enter his vehicle.
Is that a big deal or not really important to you?
That is a huge deal.
Why is that a huge deal?
Well, through my training and experience and just everything, anytime someone tries to go back to their vehicle in a manner like he did, we're thinking, hey, weapon, where's a gun? Why are you trying to go back to that vehicle? What's going on in his head? I clearly gave him some instructions to stay right here, and he disregarded that. So now my question is why do you want to get in that vehicle so bad?
What did you do in response to his movement?
I quickly exited the patrol unit and gave him commands. Come back here. Stop. Stay right here. Listen, do you understand? I did ask him over and over again, do you understand? Do you understand? And the reason I do that is because I want to make sure he understands what I'm asking him to do. I mean, I want to be clear to you as day. I want you to know exactly what I'm talking about, what my intent is. Hey, stand right here. Do not move. So I had to give him clear instructions. Just like we talked about earlier. I mean, once that's happened, are you at a heightened sense of security at that point? Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. Did he let you know that he understood?
Yes, sir, he did.
And so, what did you do next?
I proceeded to get back inside the vehicle to finish conducting business before taking him to custody.
And what happened next?
He got back inside of his vehicle and took off.
Now, this time you say he got back inside of his vehicle. Is that a different situation than the first time when you stopped him before he could get back in?
Yes, sir.
How's that different?
Because he was able to enter the vehicle and he was able to get in the driver's seat and he put it in the drive.
The second time, did you pull your service weapon?
I did pull my service weapon simply because of what happened previous to that is he was reaching inside the vehicle and I told him, let me see your hands. At this point now I'm already thinking there's something inside of this vehicle. So now, rifle bag, him reaching inside the vehicle, him not complying, him trying to just get back in the vehicle and go. I didn't know what he was going to do at that point.
What did he end up doing? Did he comply with your commands at that point?
No, sir, he did not.
So you're at the front of that car, weapon drawn, and he's not complying with your commands. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. What did he do at that point?
He took off, and he ended up driving to the field.
Okay. What did you do in response to that?
Initially, I jumped in the vehicle, put it in drive, and started to take off right after him.
Okay. You said initially, so something must have happened.
Yeah, I put it in the drive, and I was on go. I'm like, let's go. Let's figure this out. Let's stop him before he gets out on this road. Well, once he spun into that field, the way that he spun, it kind of spun back around in my direction. We do a lot of high-risk traffic stops, and that's just the nature of our job. And the chase is on, of course, but something in the back of my mind said, stop. The reason I say that is because it's kind of like he's trying to get me to come to where he is. That's a very dangerous situation. Of course, when you're facing each other like this, I have no protection at all. So now we're like this. I see that. I realize that. Now this is a danger area and quickly put it in reverse.
By putting it in reverse, you allowed him. I mean, you hadn't closed him off, I guess.
Correct.
So what was your biggest fear at that point? Getting into that confrontation there or getting into a chase?
Getting into the confrontation right there.
Okay. So what does he do next?
He finally takes off and he gets onto the roadway. There's a red light right there at Spring Creek, and he hops the curve, disregards the light, goes through the intersection, and he runs.
Looking at State's Exhibit number 3. If you could, we kind of see in the very bottom of it, we kind of see that field down there with the rows. That was the area that you initially stopped him at. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
As we move up from there, what's that next big highway that we see?
121.
Okay. So he gets back onto the toll road, and so he's heading in that direction towards 121 and north. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I know this is a silly question, but does he do so in a safe manner?
Absolutely not.
What do you observe as he's driving north on the North Toll Road?
Well, I observe him traveling at a high rate of speed. I also observe him weaving in and out of traffic. And then I also observe that he's driving on a blown tire. So he's on rims at this point, nothing but metal.
At that time, were there other cars out there?
Yes, sir, there were.
Okay. Did you have your lights and sirens activated?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. Did he pull over?
No, sir, he did not.
How far do you go up the toll road following him?
We take the Lebanon exit is where we finally get off.
Moving to State's Exhibit number 4, do we see there the Dallas North Toll Road at the Lebanon exit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. To the right, there's a construction area. Actually, to the northeast, that northeast corner of Lebanon, that's where there's a children's hospital, the Shriners Children's Hospital is now. What's to the left of the toll road, to the west of the toll road up there?
In terms of where we stopped, or?
Just the general area right now where we see on State's Exhibit number 4, those all houses and apartment buildings, as you talk about that Lebanon exit to the west.
Yes, it's shopping centers, apartment complexes, and a little bit further down the road is a daycare.
Okay. Looking at State's Exhibit number 5, a better view of that enclosed area, Lebanon, the apartment buildings. Are those the apartment buildings you actually ended up? Are those the La Valencia apartments that you actually ended up going in?
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned shopping area right by there, Montessori daycare area, and a neighborhood.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Do you remember, did he run red lights coming off the toll road and getting onto Lebanon heading west?
Yes, sir, he did.
Okay. Take us through kind of what you remember as far as the entry level into that apartment. What do you remember about his actions and your responses there?
It's a gated community, so you have to have gate access to go in and out of that apartment complex. In the middle, there's a grassy area before you enter inside, either to the left or to the right. You want to explain his driving behaviors?
Well, and are you talking about kind of like you can see it right there in front of that apartment complex? So you're talking about kind of like a flower bed curb kind of thing?
Yes, sir. I mean, I can show him right quick if you want me to, if you can't circle.
Okay. You good standing up? All right. And we see that right off Lebanon in the front of those apartment complexes. What about that stuck out to you?
He didn't make immediate entry to his apartment complex. He just drove in circles. That's concerning to me because I did observe him reaching. So driving in circles and reaching, in my mind, what are you doing? Are you prepared for something greater than this? Probably so. I think he was stalling, to be honest about it.
Is he able to finally get through that gate?
Yes, he is.
And do you follow him through that gate?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is going through your mind at this point?
Children. That's what I'm thinking about. He's traveling at a high rate of speed. I can't travel at that high rate of speed because I still have to exercise due care for the public. His distance from me, That's another concern for me. Is
Why?
Just because he has an advantage. So before my vehicle can come to arrest, he can already be out. He can already be running through the complex. I mean, at this point, I don't know why he's running. I don't know if he has weapons. I just know that this guy is trying to get away from me.
And, I mean, are you familiar with all the apartment complexes and all the different housing on the entire tollway?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay. All right. Is that an advantage? He knows where he's going and you don't?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything you're doing as far as what's coming next to prepare for either stopping that car or having a confrontation?
Well, at this point, and even prior to that, it's considered a high-risk traffic stop at this point. I'm trying to actively get my rifle out of the rack.
And were you able to get your rifle out of the rack?
No, sir.
Why not?
The power died for some reason. It wouldn't allow me to unlock the rack.
And so you're in a chase, you're going revving up, revving down, for whatever reason, you're not able to get your long gun.
No, sir, I'm not.
What about dispatch? Was your radio still working?
No, sir, it was not.
Okay. While you were driving, were you trying to call out to dispatch as much as you could where you were at any given time?
Yes, sir, I was.
Do you know exactly when the power went out?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, so now you don't have radio, you don't have your long gun. What are you thinking next?
This is a bad situation.
Okay. How do you prepare yourself for that?
It's just me at this point. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen fast, and it's going to be violent.
When you saw that car come to a stop, what is your first thought? What do you got to do?
I have to get out. We got to go. We got to get him.
Okay. Is it safer to get out of your car or to stay in your car?
We're trained to get out. Normally, before the vehicle comes to rest, we're already out of our seatbelts. We already have the door open. We're already getting ready to put it in park. I mean, it's that fast.
And in this on this day, did that end up being a life-saving procedure for you?
Yes, sir, it was.
Tell the jury, when you came out of that car, what you saw.
I saw a big rifle pointed right at me.
What did you do in response to that?
I shot back. I jumped out. I leaned to the side first because I couldn't even get all the way out of the car. So I leaned out as much as I could to get out of that danger zone because they expect you to be right there where you sit in your seat. And a lot of people aim at that. They know that.
And did you end up seeing any of those rounds hit that area in your vehicle?
Yes, sir, I did.
And I don't know exactly all the questions to ask you. What's going through your head at that moment?
I'm alone. This is a bad situation, and here we go.
Tactically, what are you looking to do in that moment when you've got an individual who is firing rounds at you? Tactically, what do you need to do in that situation?
We need to stop the threat.
Okay.
I mean, we need to stop the shooting. The more shooting, the more innocent people can die. The more I can die, the more he can die.
So what do you do to stop the threat?
I have to return fire. I have to do some type of suppressive fire to kind of get them to stop shooting at me.
Do the terms cover and concealment mean anything to you?
Yes.
What are cover and concealment?
The best way to describe concealment is something that will conceal me, where they can't see me, and also to be able to stop rounds.
Did you have good cover and concealment that day?
Not really. I mean, just my Tahoe.
So what did you do in response to positioning with regards to that threat?
I moved to the rear of the vehicle where I could create more space between the two of us.
When you moved to the rear of your vehicle, did the shooting from the defendant stop?
No, sir, it did not.
So it just continued as you're moving and you set up behind your vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now what do you start doing?
Try to get the shooting to stop. I mean, now we're actively engaged in the gunfight.
what are the concerns to you having a gunfight in an apartment complex?
People. I'm worried about people.
Let me ask you this. In a gunfight, do you want to be still or do you want to be moving?
We always want to move and shoot. That's what we're taught, to move and shoot. You never want to be in that same place. You don't want them to remember where you are. You don't want them to give him a chance to actively aim and get you. So you want to always move around, just steady moving, where you can, A, get a better vantage point, and B, he can't get you. You have to go to the safest place.
And did you do that at that time?
Yes, sir, I did.
What were some of the ways you moved?
I moved to the rear of the vehicle, from the left rear to the right rear.
And what about around you, other than your vehicle? Were there any other areas to provide cover or concealment?
Yes, sir. I was trying to move to a vehicle that was parked to get a better viewpoint on him to stop the shooting. I mean, it's just, where's my best advantage? I had, at that point, I'm at a huge disadvantage. So now I'm trying to find a way to gain an advantage.
Did that work out well for you?
No, sir, it didn't.
Why not?
Once I got over there, I say it made me bigger, if that makes any sense, in terms of he can see me better. He has a bigger view of me at that point, because now I've moved from the big Tahoe all the way over to a passenger vehicle.
Was this the first time you'd ever fired your service weapon?
No, sir.
Okay. When you are in a gun battle like this, are you trying to, I watch movies, so are you trying to keep account of how many bullets you have, or is that something that you can even do in a situation like that?
That's something that's taught. It's about being prepared. It depends on how much time you put into it. It's my deal is I want to live. So these are things that I train and do on a regular basis is to count that. You never want to run dry, is what we say. You don't ever want to run out of bullets in a gunfight. You don't want that slide to open up, because now that's a bad time for you.
So do you know, by the time you're moving to seek more cover and concealment and you get behind the passenger car, do you know how many magazines you dropped by that point?
During the fight, yes. And that's just because I'm paying attention to, A, I don't have my rifle, so I have to be aware of a tactical magazine change, is what we call it. So,
will you please explain what that is to the jury?
It's basically, like I said, you don't want to run dry, so you have to transition. You're transitioning while you're actively in this fight, where you can release the magazine, put another magazine in, and continue in the fight without having to hesitate, without a jam. You don't want to try to clear a weapons jam in a gunfight, because it changes your whole attention, takes your attention off of the violator, and now you're trying to fix this gun. So once you do that, now I've taken my eyes off the violator. He's still shooting. I've taken my eyes off of everything else that's going on around me. So you want to have that advantage of, hey, let's keep this thing going. You want to keep this gun operating properly.
Now, when you transition, realizing that was a bad place to be, well, let me ask you this: Did you ever realize, in any point during that time, that he had switched from the long gun to a pistol? Do you remember?
I remember the shooting continued. I don't remember exactly when he did. I know that there was a point where I did see his hand over the vehicle, where he was shooting over the vehicle like this at me.
Okay. When you decide the passenger car, that ain't the spot for me, and you try to move back towards your car, what happened at that point?
That's when I got hit.
Okay. How do you know, how did you know?
Well, I knew I was going down, and of course I was trying to take a step, and my leg totally gave out on me. So I was like, man. So I knew something was wrong. I didn't know how bad it was, but I knew something was wrong. I also knew that these bullets were still coming at me. And at that point, it's not over with. We still have an active gunfight, and not today.
Okay. At some point, did you see the defendant running towards the stairs behind him?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you continue to fire, stay in that gun battle that entire time?
Yes, sir.
Once he hits the stairs and goes up, you're safe though, right?
No, sir, absolutely not.
Why not?
If he's going up the stairs, he's going to gain a vantage point. What that means is that he's going to be on higher ground. Based on looking at the apartment complex, on the left side, there are windows all on that left side. Standing on at the rear left of my Tahoe, I could see those windows. So if I can see, he can clearly see me. There was nothing there other than my Tahoe to conceal me.
Do you remember how many mags you were down to at that point?
I was on my last magazine.
Okay. So at this point, for you, him running up those stairs wasn't a moment of relief for you?
No, sir.
What are you preparing for now?
I'm preparing for the gunfight out of the window.
What are your concerns at that point? Who are you concerned for at that point? Now, I mean, other than yourself, obviously, but now that he's gaining an elevated position, who are you concerned for now?
I'm concerned for the other people in the complex on either side of him, civilians that are just walking around after the shooting is stopped. I'm concerned about the other responding peace officers coming up.
Did you hear sirens of peace officers coming to back you up?
Initially, I didn't. I heard tires. I heard screeching of the tires, high speed. That's what I remember. It's weird.
And let me ask you this: you said you were concerned about people being out there. I mean, were there people out there at that time?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember any people in particular that were out in that area during that time?
Yes, sir, I do. To my right, there was a lawn service, a gentleman cutting the lawn. I want to say it was like a white Ford F-250 with a trailer on it, to my right.
In your estimation, as far as your shots being fired, I know you didn't have a choice, but with regards to surrounding people, is it safer for you to be firing your service weapon, or is it safer for you to have your long gun with regards to where your rounds are being placed?
A long gun would be safer.
And explain to the jury why.
Just because of its accuracy. When we talk about the collateral damage, I'm looking at penetrating through that vehicle to stop the threat is what I'm trying to do. The pistol round that I had is not very strong. It's a 9mm. It's not really going to do a whole lot. The rifle will. It will actually get to where I'm trying to get it to go.
And for lack of a better term, that also keeps you from spraying.
Correct. It's a stable platform, if that makes any sense. I mean, because the rifle's up here, I have more of a stable platform. I can use more of my muscle. I can lock it in here, whereas you're worrying about the recoil on that pistol. Every single time you shoot, you have to re-aim. And that's what you're doing, and that's what you really don't want to do, but in an intense situation like that, you're going to do that.
Did backup arrive?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what agency was first to back you up?
Frisco PD.
Okay. And when Frisco, well, let me ask, is there anything, as you're in this gun battle, I know you've talked about making sure you don't run dry. Are there any other safety procedures, ways you've been trained that you are going through mentally with regards to preparing for other officers to come on scene, your role now you've been hit? Anything like that you've been trained to do that you were doing at that time?
Yes, sir. There's a lot of things I was doing at that time. I'm checking myself for other injuries, other shots. B, explaining to them when they arrive on scene, hey, this guy's right here. This is what this guy's doing. This is where he ran. Giving a brief description. Be careful. Look at the window. And secondly, just handing over my weapon. It's a critical incident at that point. And we've seen in the past where people have discharged firearms because of the state that they're in. Sometimes people get tunnel vision and don't realize that, hey, this is a pistol, this is a cell phone, and just kind of get it mixed up. So it's more of a deal mentally. You have to prepare yourself to do that. You have to be able to bring yourself back down because now you're way up here, and now you have to be able to focus and come way back down here to think clearly. Ideally, what you're trying to do in the midst of the gunfight is kind of stay as far down to the bottom as you can, so you can think clearly. You have a level head when it comes to that.
And do you remember doing that, handing your weapon over at some point?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, I would ask to publish, permission to publish some of the in-car video and the body cam.
Go ahead and take a break before we do. Members of the jury, please be back in the jury room in 10 minutes, and we will continue in 10 minutes. Please remember my instructions.
All right.
We'll be in recess for 10 minutes. Go ahead and take off his hand.
But I'm not going to show you what's been marked as State Exhibit number 7. Your car was equipped with an in-car video that day, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Why are you driving like that? What is wrong with you? The other night.
8205. Show me now on County 152 769. 152 769. Yeah, 8205 152 769. $14.70.
that you almost probably killed, don't get a chance either. 125 miles an hour, you driving on that shoulder and get back to the road. Okay? One of you then. Go ahead, forward that traffic. You're going to kill yourself. Okay. NASCAR drivers, you do that every day? Are you that good? Can you everybody else do it? What about it? That's my point. And at 125 miles an hour, is that pretty safe for you? Oh, it's crashed? Everyone took me around. That's the result. There's current on here. On here. There's current on your light. That with you will be able to support. Okay? Take care. Nope. Stay right there. Hey. Nope. Hey. Do not reach inside your car. Stay right there. Like I told you. I'm telling you. Right now.
23677 Rainbow County.
Yeah, right there. You do not go back to your car. Do you understand that? Do you understand what I'm telling you? Do not go back to your car. Do you understand that? Right there. Understand that. So, stay right there. Do not go back to your car. Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm telling you to do? Understand what I'm telling you to do. Do not go back to your car. Do you understand that? Stop right there. Stop. Stop right now. You better stop right now. Do you understand me? You better stop. The 1111. Give me 1080. He's stuck in the grass right here at Spring Creek exit. Get in there, unit.
10-4, I need another unit to respond. UNC northbound near Spring Creek exit for crash for 1D1111. Go ahead.
Good traffic. Move!
$5. 18205. Copy 10-6, Collins Lane, 152773.
For left 11 on westbound.
I'm going to stop it right there. You also had body cam, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we're going to watch now the body cam and get the different perspective of the video actually coming from your chest. But if you would, I noticed a couple things we didn't cover, and I apologize. First off, did you notice your vehicle still rolling even after you had exited and the shooting was going on?
Yes.
What did you have to do in the midst of that shooting because you had to exit your vehicle so fast?
I had to stop the vehicle from rolling.
Okay. Did you have to reach in with your hand and actually hit the brake and put it back into park? Do you remember? No,
I had to put my leg back in to actually stop it. So I had my pistol out here, still actively shooting and trying to stop it from rolling forward at the same time.
Okay. And then right where we ended it, after the defendant had headed up the stairs, we hear what sounds like a door opening and some movement in the car. And I forgot to ask you about this. You had told the jury your electrical system went down and you did not have your radio. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So when the defendant goes up the stairs, we hear some of that noise. What are you doing right there?
I'm reentering my patrol unit because, of course, my radio system is down, so I had to get my cell phone to call for assistance.
and Troop, we told the jury this earlier, but you and I actually worked through your body cam, listening to it so that we could give a caption version so the jury can actually hear the interaction at the car. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the body cam, if you would tell the jury, where does the body cam sit on your vest?
We're going to keep it on our chest level so you can get a clear view of everything that's going on around us.
So when this video starts and you're driving, what is the body cam showing a video of?
It's probably showing my arm because the way I'm driving, so it covers it up a little bit.
Makes your bicep look huge, right?
That's DPS for you.
3626. It's going to be a green, looks like a shed. That's a marketable. And you might go to jump over the drive. Probably will. Likely. $125. Holy crap. I don't think we're all over y'all. Whoa! Why are you driving like that? What is wrong with you? I'm a little crazy. Driver's license and insurance. You're going to jail for reckless driving. Driver's license and insurance right now. Stand right here for me. Turn around for me. Good. Please give me a chance, man. No. That family that you almost probably killed, they don't get a chance, do they? At 125 miles an hour, you driving on that shoulder and getting back in the road like that, you think that's safe? You get somebody at that speed, you don't kill yourself. Are you a NASCAR driver? You do it every day? Are you that good? Can you predict what everybody else is going to do? No. That's my point. Okay, and at 125 miles an hour, is that pretty safe to you? The answer is no. Not safe. Okay, so as a result, we're going to go to jail. Okay? You know, there's nothing to talk about. Is all your current on here? Is everything current on here? Everything current on your license. Give me a second, I'll be right back with you with the recording, okay? Stay right there. right there. Hey, no, hey. Do not reach inside your car. Stand right there. Like I told you, do what I'm telling you to do. Stand right there. Right now. Stand right there. You do not go back to your car. Do you understand that? Do you understand what I'm telling you to do? You do not go back to your car. Do you understand that? Right there. Do you understand that? Okay, give me a break. No. Stay right there. Do not go back to your car. Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm telling you to do? I can't do this. Do you understand what I'm telling you to do? Do not go back to your car. Do you understand that? Stop right there. Stop. Stop right now. You better stop right now. You understand me? You better stop. 1111. Show me 1080. He's stuck in the grass right here at Spring Creek exit. See me another unit.
Respond, UNT northbound near Spring Creek exit for crash for 1D1111. Go ahead.
Move! They were northbound at Legacy. Nope, he's running.
Show me around. What's the circumstances?
Track stop.
4 out traffic.
Northbound at 121. He just blew a tire. We're northbound at Gaylord. Move! We're sitting northbound coming up on John Hickman. He's on middle. Be a green two-door vehicle, license plate, King Mary George, 3626, white male, black shirt, blue jeans. He's reaching inside of his bag, doing a lot of moving inside of the car. We're taking John Hickman exit at the time.
Service Road. He just ran the red light. John Lincoln.
205 Dallas.
1A205.
I'll be 10-6, Collins Joint, 152773.
10 up 11-9. You know, this is up like 11-9. We're making the left on 11-9. Voicemail. Turn to the apartment complex. La Valencia. Turn into La Valencia parking lot. Apartment complex to La Valencia. Once you get in there, we're come on. Hey, we got shots fired, I'm hit. 1D11. Got shots fired, I'm hit. I'm hit, 10 EMS. Hurry, hurry. Shots fired, I'm hit. I'm hit, brother. He went upstairs. Yeah, man. On my leg. It's my foot. Green Pontiac.
in the car, do you know?
No, nobody's in there.
Where you at, man?
What leg? He had an AR, he was shooting at it. I mean, with an AR, brother.
49 B5, he's got off the rifle. Male? You got a
Yes, white male.
White male? You need a white male. I'm not sure what the first. Hey, I need somebody up here. Hey, bring that car up here. Go just a little more.
You got me, bro. I can't walk in better. I can't walk. Thanks, brother. Sorry.
I got you, Doc. I got you. Let me get you going.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, you bet. How many days in the hospital? I got you. Come up with me, man. Hang in there.
All right, brother.
Hang in there, bro.
All right, brother. Watch your door.
Oh, man, I got you.
Oh, man.
3586. I am taking you to the hospital. Are you good with me?
Where is he?
I'm good, brother.
Which hospital are you headed to?
Stand by, stand by.
Watch out, brother. My leg. I know. Hey, brother. There's nobody else in there. Sorry, brother. Oh, man, you're down.
I'm going to stop it real quick, Troop. Just so the jury understands what just happened there, we heard you say, "Oh, man, you're down."
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what just happened to that squad car that you're in the back of, please?
They had to ramp through the gate to get out, and it totaled their vehicle to get me out of the gate of the apartment complex.
So the officers that are trying to get you to the hospital, they had to bust through a gate to try to get out, and it blew their tires, blew their system.
Yes, sir.
Watch my leg, brother.
I'm sorry, brother.
You're good.
You're good.
You're good.
My leg. My foot right there.
I got you.
Shit. I'm sorry, man.
You're good.
Here, I can feel it on one leg.
Come on.
Let me get on one leg.
Pull him, Mike.
Not my leg.
Don't pull back.
Not my leg.
Got you, baby. Get him out. Where are you hit?
On my leg, baby.
Okay.
Received advising you have him with you and you're en route? Received. Do y'all have any more location on where the gunshot wound is?
My foot.
Right leg.
I received it in the right leg.
You all right, man?
Yeah, brother, I'm just
Yeah, we
breathing.
got the truck on the phone.
Give me 2 units behind you in the forklift construction area to the southeast. Given 4, building 4. And,
Trooper, I heard one of the lieutenants in the front of that vehicle ask you a question. Do you have something? I forgot. What is it that they were asking you about? Treatment of your leg that you could do in the back of your car?
Oh, my tourniquet?
Yes, sir. That's what it was.
Yes. So, of course, in this incident, you can probably hear me breathing, and he's like, are you okay? Are you okay? What I'm doing is I'm just trying to remain focused and bring my heart rate down. At this point, I don't know how bad I'm hit. I don't know how bad I'm bleeding. So I'm trying to control my breathing to control the bleeding.
Did you apply a tourniquet at that point?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And with regards to where you were taken to Plano Presby, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I approach, Your Honor. State exhibits 395, 396, and 397 are fair to say there were many pictures of you during your treatment. We've chosen these as the best to show the jury. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Judge, at this time, we're going to offer State's Exhibit number 16, Trooper Webb's medical records for record purposes only under business record affidavit, and State 17, a redacted copy of those for all purposes.
No objection to either offer.
For record purposes, State 17 is admitted.
Then we'll offer States 395 through 397 at this time.
No objection to 395, 396, or 397.
They're admitted.
Trooper, if you would, can you talk us through a little bit about what did you think had happened as far as your lower leg while you were being transported to the hospital? Were you able to tell what had happened, or did you just know you had been shot?
I just know I've been shot.
Can you kind of walk us through that process as far as you put your tourniquet on, when you get to the hospital, what's that scene like when you pull up to that hospital? Are there people out there waiting?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's pretty intense. I mean, on this end of it, you don't expect to be transported, and you don't expect to be put on that gurney. I mean, that's just not what we do. You know, we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to protect. So it's a little different when you're the one on the other end of that.
And did that hospital staff at Plano Presby, they went to work on you at that point? Is that
yes, sir, right away.
Were you able to call your wife at that point?
It took a little while, but yes, I was able to. We were finally able to get in touch with her.
Okay. Tell the members of the jury when you were able to get a hold of your wife, how did she react?
Originally, she thought I was joking. She was out of town on a business trip, so she was at the airport coming back from Philly at that time. So she didn't expect that phone call. I didn't expect to give that phone call either. But when she realized I don't joke about either shooting or being shot, that's just something that we don't joke about. And I think she finally realized, okay, this is real. He's really in the hospital.
Was that a trying time for you as a couple?
Just that part of the entire time.
Well, we're going to go through the entire time, but I mean, that part, having to make that phone call to your wife, was that tough?
Yeah, it's a really tough phone call because she's not here, and so essentially I'm by myself.
Was she able to make it up there before or after you made surgery?
Yeah, she was flown in, and we had an escort get her and bring her to the hospital.
Okay. At what point in time were you made aware of the extent of your injuries?
When it finally kicked in, it was after my surgery.
Okay. As far as you're being treated, You're being treated in the ER. They're doing X-rays. The next thing you know, they're telling you, "Hey, we gotta take you in. We gotta go."
Yes, sir.
All right. Your medical records are in for record purposes, state 16. I'm going to show you state 17 and kind of talk about your injuries a little bit, if that's okay.
Okay.
So that you know, within state 17, we have redacted any mention of anything other than your name. Just so you know, as we go through this, fair enough?
Yes, sir.
But as we can see on state 17, your name up there, Travaris L. Webb, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, from that point forward in a lot of your medical records, and especially in state 17, were you aware that hospitals have procedures actually in place with regards to officer-involved shootings to protect your information? Were you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so for a lot of these records we're going to go over, it actually refers to you as Mike Trauma Oscar, and it does not give your proper name, your age. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We see from State's Exhibit number 17 that you're brought in, and they put on what time you applied the tourniquet to yourself. We see a open distal tibial shaft fracture and an associated fibular fracture. If you could, I mean, in layman's terms, can you just tell the jury, man, when that bullet hit your leg, what ended up happening to your leg?
I basically shattered it. There's kind of really nothing to hold my foot up. So essentially, when you took the boot off, it just hangs.
Both of those bones in your leg shattered?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you know what? Instead of laboring through those, if you would tell the jury, what did they end up doing to your leg to try to fix your leg again?
We ended up going through the first surgery. What they did is they stuck a rod through my knee in hopes that we'd have something to anchor my foot to. Once they got to that point, they realized that it would not anchor, so they had to pull the rod all the way back out through my knee, and then that's when they reconstructed the side of it and just screwed it into the bone, hoping that would work.
Was that the final surgery?
No, we had an additional surgery.
Why did we have an additional surgery?
We had hardware in place. The problem with the hardware is that I guess my body didn't like it and started to reject it, and we started to have fluid buildup, and they were worried about infection in my bones, so we had to take that out.
How long did you have to go without being able to even put weight on your leg?
A couple of months. It was a long time.
And then, I mean, basically, as we see State's Exhibit number 397, I mean, you were being, through rehab, having to learn how to walk again. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know, we are in the punishment phase of a hearing, and I don't have many more questions for you, Troop, but we're in the punishment phase of a case here, and you understand he's pled guilty.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But because of that, we get to talk to you a little bit about how this has impacted your life. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
With regards to your relationship, how did this play out as far as is your wife feeling about you being a police officer?
Didn't like it. Like I said, we have young ones at home, and he wants me to come home. And so that's hard on us because this is what I love to do. This is what I do. This is my passion. And, you know, I can't think of any other job that I'd rather do. But I do want to be here for them.
You were ready to go back on the job the minute they'd let you, right?
I was ready to go.
You've also received some news here recently with regards to your status, with regards to how far you're going to be able to go with those injuries to your legs. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
And what were you told by the doctors?
By multiple doctors, I was told that I'll never be able to run again.
How does not being able to run affect your ability to be a police officer?
hard. This is what I do. I protect people. The issue with that is that I may have to be retired. I can't perform my job duties.
You've told me you have no ill will towards this defendant. Is that correct? That's correct. You understand, as a witness in this case, you can't tell the jury do this or do that. That's not our spot, right?
No, sir.
If there is something that can come out of this trial, what is it that you would like to see done in this trial?
I just want to be fair and just. You know, I want him to receive help. You know, I pray for his family, pray for my family.
Your only goal for the community to be kept safe?
Yes, sir.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Haynes?
Thank you. Trooper Webb, you studied at Angelo State College, you said?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
What was your degree there?
Computer science.
And then how long after you received your degree did you report to the DPS Academy?
It was about 2 years.
All right. And how long is the DPS Academy, how long is the course of study there?
6 to 7 months.
All right. Now, I was interested to hear about your communications problems in that car. DPS has its own independent dispatch system.
That is correct.
And where is the DPS transmitter? It used to be up in Sherman. I think they closed that one down. Where's the one you communicate with?
It's in Garland. We also have the NTTA tollway dispatch.
All right. And how does and so that dispatch is just for the troopers and the DPS dispatcher, right?
Which one?
The one on the tollway. I guess that's the one you were using that day.
Correct. They can also make contact with your roadside safety guys to go and change your tire and give you gas and all that.
Right. But you can't communicate from your radio in your squad car with city police or the Collin County dispatch. That's done by the DPS dispatcher?
Correct. She's the lifeline between us and the other agencies.
Well, seems kind of cumbersome.
There's a lot going on.
So the handheld radio, you told Mr. Mitchell it doesn't work at all?
It doesn't work well.
All right. And the car radio works a little better, but still doesn't work great.
The car radio is different because with the car radio, it's kind of hit or miss. Either other troopers can hear you or they can't. Either the dispatch can hear you or they can't. It just really depends on where you are.
All right. What's your, you've been doing this 14 years. What's your take on the percentage of times you're able to, that you're using the radio, that you're able to actually communicate with the dispatcher?
I can't give you a percentage.
All right. Does this intermittent operation of the radio systems affect the recordings that we heard played? Or are they separate systems?
Which recordings are you talking about?
So we saw two videos played, and one was apparently made by a camera that was located on the actual vehicle, and then there's a separate recording of a camera that's on your body cam. This intermittent radio operation, does that affect the recording from those two systems?
No, they're independent.
All right. Now, tell me a little bit more about the Nextel system. Is that a cell phone?
It is tied in through a phone, yes.
All right. And that's a phone that's provided for you by the DPS, not your personal cell phone.
That's incorrect. That's provided by the tollway.
All right. But it's not your personal cell phone.
No, it's not.
Does it work does it operate like a regular cell phone, like you could call anyone you wanted to on it, or does it just communicate within the DPS network or the tollway network?
It operates like a walkie-talkie.
Right. So So who's on the other end of it?
Dispatch.
All right. So although it's a cell phone, it can only talk to the tollway dispatch.
Correct.
And I guess that's a backup to that wonky radio system.
That is correct.
But it doesn't work any much better than the radio system.
It gets bogged down, it gets tied up, and you can't transmit.
All right. So when this whole incident began, you were southbound on the tollway, right?
I was turning around from going southbound, correct.
All right. So did you see Mr. Cahill's car before you turned around, or you just happened to be turning around?
I saw it once I turned around and got on the ramp to get onto the tollway.
All right. So the first time you saw his car, both you and he were going in the same direction, north on the tollway?
Correct.
What time was that?
I don't recall exactly what time, sir.
All right. Was it morning or afternoon, or can you say?
It was afternoon.
Okay. When we watch the videos, it sure looks cloudy and gray throughout the whole incident. Is that what you remember?
Possibly.
All right. Had it been raining that day or no?
I don't remember any rain.
All right. Now, you've been with the Highway Patrol 14 years. How long on the tollway?
5+ maybe.
All right. I mean, that's a major place of operation by the Highway Patrol, right?
Yes, sir, it's busy.
That tollway, typically the traffic moves faster than on 75, for instance.
I can't tell you that. I don't know.
All right. And, man, we sure do hear a lot about people driving way too fast on that tollway. Would you agree with that assessment?
We hear people driving fast everywhere.
All right. When you noticed Mr. Cahill's speed, that caused you to focus in on him pretty tight, right?
Got my attention, correct.
All right. And you had decided to effect a full custody arrest for reckless driving before you ever stopped the car. Is that fair?
I did make the decision.
All right. Were you upset with him because of how he was driving?
I don't know him. I'm not upset at all. It's not personal. It's business.
You had sent the information about the registration on the car to dispatch while you were following him up the tollway. Is that correct?
So yes.
All right. Do you have to do that with a voice communication over the microphone, or do you have a camera system that transmits that data without you saying anything?
It's over the microphone.
All right. So you just say, all right, I'm following this car, and this is the driver's license. This is the license plate number.
That's correct.
All right. Now, I think you said that you could also determine insurance coverage over the radio like that?
They can confirm it, but on the computer, if you notice, I did run it on my laptop. On my tablet, that goes to DPS communications. The radio goes to NTTA. So everything that we run is through our computer. It goes straight through DPS.
Right.
So that's not a tollway system.
All right. So are you able to determine while you're following the vehicle you're pursuing whether or not it has insurance coverage before you ever see the driver's insurance card?
Am I able to determine it?
Yes, because I thought that's what I understood you to say on direct.
I mean, once we look at it, if you actually start scrolling through, yes, that's what you're looking for, but that's not what I was looking for. Everything happened so fast. I didn't have time to do that. It didn't matter.
All right, so you contacted him. He was initially cooperative with you. He said, I'm a little bit crazy. What effect did that have on how you were perceiving that encounter?
That he was just having fun.
That field that you were stopped next to, I think that's Mr. Harrington's farm, maybe. it looks to have had some kind of was it planted with a crop? What was up with that?
It was a field.
Okay. Was it wet and muddy?
I don't recall that.
All right. When did his tire get disabled?
The first time was when he jumped the curb when he was going through the intersection at Spring Creek.
All right, so the tire, that left rear tire is disabled immediately as soon as you get off Bishop Road and he bounces the curb to get around the light there. That's when that left rear tire was disabled.
I can't say that it was disabled immediately. I can say that it did sustain damage.
So we've seen the drive up the road there. He circled one time before he entered the apartment complex. Is that correct?
That's what the video shows.
All right. And is that consistent with waiting for that gate to open?
No, it's not.
Well, if he'd pulled up to the gate and it was closed, he would have had to either stop or circle, right?
Okay.
Is that correct?
He would have to stop to go through the gate.
And at that point, he would have been pinned between your vehicle and the gate, at least until the gate opened.
He wouldn't have been pinned in because I wouldn't have gotten that close to him.
All right. When did you realize your radio was not working right?
I don't know the exact time, sir.
All right. When's the last return transmission you remember getting from dispatch?
Probably around when I turned on Lebanon, maybe.
So right after you got off on the you got off of the tollway and then turned left onto Lebanon. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And so that was the last transmission you remember from dispatch.
That's the last one I remember as of right now.
The first time you knew you had help coming was you heard the screeching tires from the other officers' cars. Is that right?
That's the time that I knew that somebody was coming.
All right. And out at the scene, did it seem like, at the scene where you stopped him on Bishop Road, did he seem like he was having any trouble hearing what you said to him?
No, I was clear.
Well, at one point you asked him about whether the information contained on the driver's license and the insurance card was all correct. Do you remember asking him that?
Yes, sir, I do.
Did it seem like he was having trouble hearing you on that subject?
It didn't, but if he did, I've repeated myself multiple times.
Well, that's what I mean. You asked him, and you had to repeat the question. I counted 3 times. Did that make you think he was having trouble hearing you?
No.
All right. All right. We can hear. Was it windy out there?
That's just my body cam. It'll pick up if you look down and blow at it. You can hear it clear as day.
So it may sound like it was windy, but it didn't seem windy to you.
No, it didn't.
All right. All right, Trooper Webb, thank you very much for your time today. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness released or reserved?
By the state.
The trooper's released.
You are released from the rules, sir. You're free to stay or go, whatever you'd like to do. Let's go ahead and take our lunch recess. Members of the jury, please be back in the jury room at 2 o'clock. We will continue at 2 o'clock. Please remember my instructions. See you at 2.
All right.